Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second session of Mindful Eating for the Beloved Community. We're going to start with just a mindful minute. So we're going to walk the walk here. And if this is a new experience for you, that's okay, because it's a new experience for me as well. Slow down and take 60 seconds to breathe with awareness. So I'll ask that you find a comfortable seating position. And then if you'd like, place your hand on your chest or your belly and feel the gentle rise and fall of your rib cage and abdomen as you breathe. Again, as comfortable as you feel doing this in your situation. Now I'm going to set my timer for 1 minute. So we are just going to breathe with awareness and slow down after what I'm sure has been a busy and active day for all of us. And I'll ask that everyone please mute to make sure that we don't get any distracting noises here. And we're going to do it for 1 minute, starting now. Okay, and that was a minute. Thank you for experiencing that with me. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Chef Alex to talk about mindfulness and mindful eating. Alex?
Thank you, Bob. Let me share my screen. All right, everyone can see that. Can everyone see that? Okay. So I'd like to start with a premise of both mindfulness and mindful eating. One of the things that we need to realize is that they intersect with each other. And while we're talking about mindful eating for the beloved community, the framework is within mindfulness. So we want to just do a brief intro to both of those so that you understand the context of mindfulness and mindful eating. And again, I will say that mindfulness and mindful eating are not constructs ordinarily introduced, framed, and approached in urban communities, BIPOC communities of color. And so this is really the work that I've done around adapting it and meeting people where they are so they can understand the principles that are word and phrase accessible and understood within the context of what's relevant to health and wholeness in, again, communities of color. So we'll first start out by a quote that I really like that connects everything together, and that's from Ron Finley, who's a very well-known urban farm activist that was first on the scene to really elevate the messaging around um, the diseases and food related diseases that are in the community. And what at the top of the list, there's other things, but at the top of the list, there's high blood pressure, diabetes, asthma. People can debate whether obesity doesn't have anything to do with it, but obesity is something that's relevant to the understanding of health in the communities. We're not body shaming or anything like that. We're really talking about BMI and really carrying more weight than your body needs to carry in order for it to be healthy. All right. So there's no, there's a lot of people that are in big frames, and by no means are we trying to label that, but we're just looking at that from the relationship of the combined math, the mathematical equation for health in the community. And what he really kind of brings, a framework to is that it's all pretty much related to what you put inside your body. So let's just back up a little bit and just talk about health, because health, a lot of people think if you're not sick you're healthy, which is actually not true. That just means you're not sick. And health is on the other side of that spectrum. And so we want to make sure that people understand that their goal should be health. Obviously, not being sick is obviously a goal if you are sick, but then on the other side, the goal should be optimally, how you can have the best quality of life, physically, social, and mentally. And that's pointed out by the World Health Organization. The other thing is that, you know, in every community, if there are sick people, the community is not healthy. So there is an absolute holistic standpoint that the goal should be everyone in the community should be free of disease or sickness, and be able to live a healthy and whole life. Again, the CDC's definition is everyone should have the opportunity. And again, everyone includes everyone. That includes the homeless. That includes people in nursing homes. That's everyone in the community, the young people. So it's just not a sect. It is the whole component, and the whole pie, as we would say, and not just the pieces and slices. I don't have to go through the list. Um, I have been in parts of these lists. I mean, especially the cholesterol piece. And so, one thing leads to another. What I began to understand around health is it's all related. So, your heart's connected to your kidneys are connected to your lungs are connected to your liver, and so on and so forth. And so, what we want to do is make sure that we have people understand holistically what we need to be out on the watch for, especially if there's a family history, which is something significant in BIPOC communities. So let's park with the framework of why mindfulness is important, and I want to just spend a couple of minutes on this slide because there's um, well, this slide could be 10 slides. And so I want to kind of unpack this a little bit because I think it's really important. What is mindfulness? Taking a silent break from everything, focusing on your attention on the moment to form a practice. And that means you try to do it as often as possible, with the goal of doing it as often as possible for the body, mind, and spirit. And so, what does this include? I mean, for communities of color, my experience has been that we should start with breathing. A lot of people in communities of color do not know how to breathe. They may take a deep breath out of stress, but ordinarily, do they stop to take a deep breath, realizing and understanding the health components of just taking that pause for the body? and just taking a deep breath and breathing in and breathing out slowly, and just doing it maybe, you know, a few different, a few times in one day. And just getting that sense of awareness and that sense of body awareness, maybe even attaching and being connected to your heart beating. And that exercise may sound simple, um, and quite frankly, it only will take a couple of minutes, but you will see the difference. And I think it's important that we start out with breathing. As a person of color, we don't know how to breathe very well. We hold our breath, which is exactly the worst thing that you can do for your heart, is to hold your breath. And so, breathing is a very, very good way to enter into a mindfulness practice. It's not about exactly sitting in a chair and meditating, although that is a good framework. But it also can be, my meditation coach. I remember one day after 2 years, he said, "We're going to take a walk." And I said, "Well, what about our meditation?" He was like, "We're going to do walking meditation." And I was just totally blown away. I'm like, what is this? And he's just like, "It's not just about sitting." And it's everything that is about awareness in the moment can be included in walking, gardening. What is the phrase? Kind of take a moment to smell the flowers. All of those things that help you reflect in the moment is the start and really ingrained in the mindfulness practice. And it just, for those that don't know where to start, those are some really easy precepts to actually, get started on the path. The other, things I mentioned in this is that, um, let's face it, the demands of life are just incredibly stressful. The last 12 months, and I have to kind of chuckle, is this, myself included, and all my friends have been through some of the most stressful periods of anxiety in our lifetimes. And so being able to start uh, a mindfulness practice in any of the ways that I previously explained will help with the stress and anxiety. I know, stress and anxiety, and I've lost a couple of dear friends that were either my same age or younger than me, because of, heart attack related stress. And that's really something prevalent because of trauma in the Black and brown community. That is something that we've had to battle. So this is a tool that can be used, and there's no age requirement. Um, I actually do some of this with my son, whether we're gardening and whether we're just taking a moment out. Again, that second point, a brief moment of peaceful mind. Well, that is really something that could help rejuvenate and even possibly heal a little bit in everything that's going on in life right now. You can't go 24 hours a day and 7 days a week and expect not something to break down. So this is something that I've incorporated, and still need to practice more, but I've incorporated to help reduce my stress, and it's something that can be really utilized and developed as a powerful tool. So let's switch gears and talk about mindful eating. Um, this is something that has been in different communities. I think sometimes we lost our way with technology. We lost our way with understanding that there are necessary different options that we need to include in our diet. And we lost the family table along the way too, where people would actually appreciate food more. And that's all part of the constructs of mindful eating. Allowing yourself to become educated and aware of the positive and nurturing opportunities that are available through food. Sometimes I'll find when I'm doing different workshops in communities, people or automatically say, "Well, I don't like that," and I'll say, "Well, why don't you like that?" Well, because someone told me it didn't taste good, and I have to marvel, like, "Well, why don't you give yourself a chance?" Um, a lot of times, people are introduced into foods that are healthier and not the best culturally appropriate ways. I get that. But we have to understand that the mind, the mind itself, um, it takes 3 times for it to register in the mind what you're eating as something that either you like or you don't like. Initially, the brain, uh, after tasting something that is foreign, that's not registered from a taste perspective, will automatically say we don't like this because we've never seen this before. And so it's really important. I learned this in culinary school. It's really important that you give yourself at least 3 chances to at least acquire a taste for something. And those should really be the best 3 chances. So don't burn the broccoli, so to say. We want to make sure that we actually have the best three swings at a bat for us to develop a taste for some things that may be very, very healthy and something that we like for the rest of our life. Using all our senses, I was talking to my son the other day. I mean, and we were talking about well, this is an off subject, but off the ramp, but about Stevie Wonder being blind and how he couldn't see his food. And I said, wow, shouldn't you appreciate being able to see the different colors? And um, you know, it's really something to appreciate, especially if we have all of our senses to use them. Um, there's so many people that don't have all of their senses, and yet they still are able to use the senses that they have to appreciate, the food in whatever aspects that they have those senses for. And so, I encourage people to look at food, to smell it, to actually look, recognize the textures, especially if there's something that you could, you know, um, add all of the elements of sensory to the eating experience. It is guaranteed that you will enjoy food to the utmost. And I really appreciate the different colors and textures. And, I think that's really something to marvel about when you're having an eating experience. So here are some basic instructions. We want to eat to live, not live to eat. We want to eat to moment basis. So, we want to kind of slow it down. Um, the fast food industry has destroyed that concept, right? Because everything's about, you know, um, well, I've seen some people eat Big Macs in record times. I mean, that's an example of what we don't want. We want to gain awareness of how you can make choices, and there's so many in choices, but we want to empower people to make their own choice. We don't want to um, impose people that they have to make choices. That's been done in communities of color for so long that it's all, it can almost be considered labeling that you choose to eat poorly or things. We want to get away from that and have people be educated through nutritional education and be able to make empowered choices. And then there's something to be said about this whole circle. um, they call it dust to dust, and it's the circle of life, and we go through it, animals go through it, and the plant kingdom go through it as well. And so there's something around the interconnection of how the earth and living beings and the cultural practice are all integrated. And that is where spirituality comes in, food cultural experiences, the stories about your grandma and grandpa, making food certain ways and putting their foot into it, and all these different jargons are beautiful ways of just showing love around food. A lot of it was food that, well, if I'm 4 generations directly out of slavery. So, a lot of it was food that people thought was inedible, and how they could just, prepare it with so much love that it was edible. And there's some really deep contemplative thought around that. And if we could imagine food from the earth to the table to our mouths. I know everyone talks about food, um, food to table, but that's not a really grandiose picture in communities of color, because we never had food on the table like that. So, we reframe that as, kind of earth to mouth, how that whole cycle has happened, and appreciating, those concepts which really meet people culturally that have been disadvantaged over the years. There's exercises that you can do, where you can put, and this is something that you can do with children. Just put a raisin in your mouth and just chew on it and salivate on it and just experience the different, the taste, and just doing a lot of exercises of experiencing the tanginess and the sweetness before you swallow it. And those are exercises to just practice, what that whole eating experience can be like before you swallow. A lot of times people ask me, should I eat ice cream? And, obviously if you're diabetic, that's a question for yourself and your physician, and your diabetic, or, persons that suffer from, um, you know, the diabetes should answer. But I do, like to frame things in perspective that, if you ask yourself, what, is what I'm putting in my mouth, serving me, or how is it serving you? And so I entirely think that everyone deserves a treat once in a while, and it should be labeled as a treat. So, from time to time, you'll see someone that looks like me flash into McDonald's, order a fillet of fish, throw out half the bun, and that'll be my treat. It's once every other month, but if I'm on track, if I feel I deserve a treat, I know that the beef isn't very good at McDonald's, but the fillet of fish is something that I could put in the treat column, and not really judge myself. I'll do it. And the same is really in effect for everything that you're putting in your body. You want to make sure that you're asking yourself, how is it serving me? And some of the answers, sometimes it'll be, well, this is a treat, so it's not serving me nutritiously. But we do want to be able to separate, so we are very clear that eating pizza every day is not good. Eating bagels every day is not good. Eating, a lot of things nutritionally not acceptable for whatever your goals and health outcomes are, really need to be into question, and we need to make sure that we put it in its perspective. And I think that's one of the keys, um, to not judging yourself. If you understand that what you're doing is either serving you nutritiously, or you're having a treat break. And I think that's something that, even the youngest people can understand. At least my 5-year-old can. um as often as possible, we want to eat with friends and family. There is some astounding statistics that if you eat by yourself, it's unhealthy for you. There's an energy transfer when you do eat with someone that has a good energy. There's a rise right now to culinary medicine and food as medicine, because people are seeing pharmacy foods. People are starting to understand, and people in the medical industry are starting to understand that if people eat healthier, they will be healthier, and that will be a supplement or a medical supplement. So what does that mean? Well, that might just mean a reduction in some of the medicines that you have to take, because you're eating healthier. And my understanding from talking to people in nutrition, the less chemicals that you have in your body, the better. So we want to kind of put that in perspective and start framing that food is your medicine. What is that? What could that mean? Well, we know certain foods are high in vitamin C. Bananas are good in potassium. We want to be able to kind of connect, the elements of health with those foods, which is really what has been done for generations. We've kind of lost track of that, and we want to bring a lot of that back, especially educating the young people and our and the children. So movements are people and their connection. And so when we talk about movements, we're talking about the community. We're talking about folks that are on this program, joined this program around connecting this movement to policymakers. Most policymakers do not understand nutrition in the community. And so there's a learning curve there. We have to bring them up to speed. I think the desire for them to be more involved, engaged is there. But again, we need to connect this movement to policymakers. Schools and communities, again, how young people being fed in schools. Um, Quite frankly, that may be even another subject for another time, but we do want to, at least ask our children, what did they eat in school? We did a youth program a couple of years ago, and I was really shocked about how much sugar they were feeding these kids, and then wondering why they were, running around and climbing on the tables. Um, I would have to say that the person that's the decision maker there probably doesn't understand the connected to what they're feeding the children and their behavior. And so that's another kind of front that we need to move towards. The connection with organizations. I mean, we're doing that now. We're extending how we can connect with different organizations to bring mindful eating to the beloved community, and we're being very successful in that. And we need to expand on that, quite frankly. And then sharing a mindful meal is something that can be done individually with someone. It can be done as a group. It could be done as a family. It could be done as a community, a family gathering. All of those things are really essences of sharing a mindful meal, talking about the food and appreciating it. And I think that actually enhances the whole experience. So here's a word cloud. For those that don't know about word clouds, we're going to go a little bit further into it. But we're going to start using this as a tool so that everyone can kind of have some contemplative thought around what we're bringing to the learning experience, bringing to the contemplative and reflective pieces, bringing to our work now and in the future. And this is just a word cloud that we did for a small gathering of folks. And this is, just what they expressed, 31 people, in what they felt was around the food that we presented from a mindful eating beloved community perspective. And this is something that can be used as a tool, and it actually can be used as a tool on a family level as well. So hopefully we are going to be able to show everyone how to use word clouds in their work, because it's an amazing tool that actually gives a timestamp for people's understanding, and you're able to really look at the domains that are uh, more important to people, maybe more or less, that you need to kind of accent. And so that's one of the tools that we will be bringing into the mindful eating beloved community equation. So Martin Luther King Jr. is one of the inspirations for this program. And he says one of the great liabilities of life is that all too many people find themselves living amid a great period of social change, and yet they fail to develop the attitudes, the new mental responses that the situation demands. And I think this was in 1968. I think in 2021, it's obviously evident that this is apropos to our situation right now, especially where it mentions new mental responses. We don't want to default to what we've done in the past. I think we need to be forward leaning in our strategies, and especially when we're talking about health equity in the community and meeting people where they are, and also the new health disparities that have been called developed over the last year. So, and that's it. I'm looking forward to answering any questions and moving forward to our discussion. And for those that don't have a book, and everyone should, you can go to loveisfood.org and purchase, you know, another book for someone else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex.
Mhm.
We're gonna spend some time making some connections between mindfulness and our spiritual religious practices. So I just want to invite, Alex shared a large amount right there. I just want to invite everyone to take a few moments and to just sort of jot down or think to yourself, given what Alex just shared around mindfulness and given whatever you've been able to read from the book in the last, we had 2 chapters assigned. Um, what, what, what are you hearing resonating in terms of mindfulness and how it connects with your faith? What strikes you for both mindfulness and mindful eating? Where are you seeing some connections? Just spend a few moments. You can, if you want to write, you can write. If you want to just think to yourself for a few moments. And I'm going to give two or three people a chance to share, and then I'll kind of move into making some more connections. And then after that, we're going to be moving into a larger group conversation. But I just want to have everyone take a few moments to make some initial connections.
Don't be bashful.
Good
both
evening,
the
everyone.
both the
Good evening.
chapter. Yeah. Go
Yes,
ahead,
my name is
Sandra, please.
Sandra, for those who don't have a video. And while he was speaking about and doing his presentation, there was something that caught my eye regarding being mindful of um, our total health, that the definition of health included also your state of mind, and stress was an issue. And it just brought to mind that as people of color, we have not only everyday stress, but we have the stress of being people of color in this society. And I think as we grow up, we learn to um, hold it on, or it's just part of life, and don't realize the stress that is creating in our bodies and in our psyche and our minds. And that's an issue also that we need to be aware of, that just the fact that we have a different set of rules that we have to live by in the society, that we have a different set of fears that we have to deal with, is stress added to the regular stress of just going to work every day. So that also is something that we need when we are going through our mindful period to think about. And another thing that when I was reading the book, there were 4 items that I had highlighted that had to do with mindfulness. And I noted that those 4 things also are important as we are studying the Word of God, as we're pursuing to know God Himself. Um, I'm not sure that I know I highlighted it, but I should have marked it. But those states of mindfulness, they're very important for us. And I think there's something that we use, or that I need to use. I don't say we, that I need to use more so, especially in my relationship and growing my relationship with God. And even with others.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has something they want to share?
I referenced Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. I just read the book today, and the mindfulness is really resonating and saying that we need to take in our environment, even down to the spices, the tools, connecting with family, friends, just taking everything in to be at peace with everything in our environment. So that's just like God talking to us, said, be still and know that I am God. I am there, a very present help in all situations. So we have to use the tools that Father God has given us to promote healthy living, healthy eating, healthy attitudes, mind, body, spirit. That's what I get out of this mindful eating. It's biblical, very biblical in nature. Take everything in, slow down, enjoy everything around you, put away old thoughts, old hurts, and be in the present and just taking what you have before you and be grateful for it. So that's basically what I think this mindful eating session is about. The two chapters that I was reading this afternoon. You know, just take the time to be quiet at peace so you can absorb everything that you need to absorb and put away the stress. Throw the stress away, throw it out the window because it's really not that important. It's just a distraction to keep you from getting where you need to be, you know? So that's basically it.
Thank you.
That's beautiful, Sharon. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'd like to say something.
Yeah, please.
Oh, okay.
Something the presenter said, briefly mentioned. He spoke about, like the cultural associations we have with food. And, like he said, he specifically mentioned some phrases that, African-American people are aware of, grew up with. And we tend to associate food with such emotion that if the food is killing us, we love it. It's and we have to become more mindful of that. And the way I do it is go back to, like scripture references. What is our relationship to foods really supposed to be? Now I'm I'm no professional in doing this, and I certainly have my issues with food, but it helps me to become more mindful in terms of, am I just supposed to be like eating to be eating? Because it reminds me of grandma, you know, um, that big slice of cake reminds me of when grandma used to throw a cake together, and, I just associated that with the ultimate love on earth, is my grandma loved me enough to make this big old piece, big old cake for me, that kind of thing. Or am I supposed to, like develop a different mindset? It's okay to have a treat, but when we go overboard, being mindful spiritually and otherwise, it really assists us with developing some sort of control, in my opinion.
Thank you. Alicia?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah. The state of mindfulness is very essential in our lives and in our community. I realized that in our community, some people, buy a piece of pizza and they'll be walking on the street and while eating it. Some will buy Chinese food and they'll be eating it on the street. And I'm so thankful and so grateful to be part of this program. And I think we will apply it. We are ready, Word of Life Christian Fellowship International. We are ready to take it deep into our community. Even though, as Sister Sharon said earlier, what she said, that's what we practice in the church. That's our belief. We eat together, and we do practice being silent, and what really struck me, as I said earlier, is for us to really take this back to our community, even though we are practicing some of these things. And some of these things that has been taught today is an eye-opening, because there are some aspects that was not in depth in what we do. But taking it back to the community, that's my heartbeat right now. And I really appreciate this. Thank you.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, please go ahead.
I lost 35 pounds since December. I went to the doctor, so I lost another 5 pounds, and I've been using my slow cooker. We have to learn how to experiment with different techniques of cooking. Also, it's how we prepare food, like they mentioned in the book about African Americans and frying everything and using a lot of fats and cheeses and stuff like that. Yes, I'm low in protein now, so I usually don't eat ground beef, but I put some ground beef in the slow cooker yesterday. But what I found out when I drained the I couldn't put the beef back in the refrigerator, so I cooked the whole thing and I stored it. When I finished cooking that ground beef, there was a half a cup of oil that came out of that ground beef. When you notice people are on stoves making hamburgers and stuff, because I don't really fry things, and they're thinking because they're putting the paper towel down and they're pressing the oil out, there is so much oil in things that we really don't see. Even when I put a whole chicken in there, but that's healthy oil to some extent. But the oil that came out of that ground beef was scary yesterday. A half a cup of oil, once it's slow cooked for about 3 hours, half a cup of oil came out of that. So we have to really experiment with how we prepare things too. That's very important.
And yes, that's my role as the culinary advisor to the Mindful Eating for the Beloved community.
Okay,
So we'll make
that's
sure we cover that. I got you covered.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We also have a really beautiful chat coming up about what is it? This beautiful quote about taking your ancestor to the grocery store with you that Curtis raised, and how is it that our ancestors are eating, and how being mindful is reconnecting to ancestral foods and ancestral ways of cooking. And there's been some other similar threads about. Someone says that when we pray, we talk to God. When we meditate and be still, God is talking to us. That's also that's a really profound observation. There's so much, I feel like we can reread, we can spend months rereading holy scriptures in the Judeo-Christian and Islamic traditions and find the ways in which mindfulness and our relationship with food and the earth is there. It's in those scriptures all over the place. And Jesus always says, do you have eyes? Can you not see? If you have ears, do you not hear? It's one of the most common things that he says to his disciples. And that question is in itself an invitation to greater mindfulness. Like, do we actually see what is happening in front of us? Do we actually hear what's happening in our ears? Do we taste what is in our mouth? Do we touch what we are actually holding? And there's this invitation that Jesus offers people to go, like, you think you're seeing, but do you really see? You think you're present in your life, but are you really? Like, to kind of go another level deeper, to scratch beneath that initial everyday humdrum of life, and to hear and to be witness towards that deeper movement of the spirit. And that's a very obvious one within the Christian scriptures, going older back into the Genesis and to the Hebrew Bible. That very, as we talked about, as I mentioned last time, like God breathing into Adam, and that very first breath, as like every time we breathe, we are partaking in the breath of the spirit. Like that to breathe itself is such a sacred act. It's what we are living because we can breathe. And I also, like, having said that, I want to acknowledge that there are people for whom their experience of trauma makes it very hard to breathe. If you are one of those, or if you are working with someone like that, I have people who I work with who, because of the trauma they've been through, actually bringing much awareness to the breath can be terrifying. I just want to acknowledge that that is also a valid experience. And so sometimes bringing your attention to your senses, or bringing your attention to a candle, or bringing your attention to something outside yourself, but that can still your mind and help yourself come and kind of quiet your mind, can be helpful if that's just too traumatic right now. But to kind of so the breath itself is a tremendous part of the Old Testament and the New Testament, and so of course is food, and so is, like, when you look at that very nice progression of how God creates the world in Genesis, there's like the rhythm, there's a beautiful rhythm. God does this, and then he pauses and he says, this is good. God creates this, and he pauses and he says, this is good. God does this, and he pauses and he says, this is good. How many times are we letting ourselves pause? Are we letting ourselves have that reflective rest? When Alex is talking about that breath, are you pausing in the day? Are you imitating the example of the divine, of having the action, and then having the reflection and the stepping back and the admiration for all of creation, even if it's quote unquote incomplete? Are you having that moment to see the whole and to be with the whole? And then every step of that story in Genesis, and both chapters of the creation story, are stories of coming into that wholeness and coming into the seeds and the goodness of creation, and from the planting to the harvesting to the ability to have for yourself, to the giving back, to the composting. Every single step of that cycle is a cycle that God first models for humans, and then humans enact in their own life. And that is part of where our goodness and our ability to be in a good, right relationship arises. So then, if anyone wants to go deeper into particularly Judeo-Christian scriptures, and how they relate to mindfulness and how they relate to food, like, I'm a good person to talk to. And there's going to be lots of resources in our resource library as well. If you want to kind of go deeper into scripture study for yourself and for others, I'm really excited that people brought up the Psalms, but there's so many different pieces that we can look to, and to help to reconfigure, what does faithfulness look like? What does faithfulness look like? So I'm gonna pause there. We still have some more good stuff in the chat, so please keep paying attention to that. And I kind of just want to take a moment now to, first thing, I'm just going to pause with what I said, because I just said a lot, and see if there's anyone does anyone want to just sort of add or is there something else that someone else might add to what I just said at this, something you just really want to share right now?
Well, I'll just bring up something, Sarah, really quickly, is that we also want to be mindful of food waste, and really being able to, and I think this really kind of coincides with mindful eating, is that starting out with a smaller portion and not really wasting food. I can go on and on about how, well, it's from a sustainable practice, from a godly practice, from those that do not have. That's, there's some ethics that need to be looked at there, but also, what can we do? what I've started doing is just, really be very careful about how much I'm making, and also understanding, what to do with the leftovers, or what to do with something before it goes bad, and chop it up and blanch it and put it in the freezer, so that we don't watch something that we could actually utilize before we send it back to the dust. And there's that step there that is really important. I just had this conversation with my 5-year-old today about making a whole sandwich, versus if he's not going to eat a whole sandwich, and he only needs a half a sandwich, because that other half a sandwich is, yeah, I mean, it's going in the compost, but that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And so we need to really be cognizant of how much we're making, and making the appropriate amount for ourselves and others, and really trying to make it a goal that we don't have leftovers. I mean, I think that's where a skill of how much to prepare for how many people, because we do want to have enough. But just being mindful that waste is, and throwing out food that could be edible for others is something that we really need to kind of have some contemplativeness around.
Mm.
Yeah, Alex.
I was going to say that I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm feeling and I'm being very mindful of how much I buy, and that what gets wasted or that wilts in the refrigerator. And because I don't want to have to go to the supermarket every day, every other day, so I may buy larger quantities, but then it's wasting money and it's wasteful in itself. And so I'm being very mindful of that right now, and using everything that I have, even the stems of vegetables and whatever, and trying to put that into a smoothie, or make it into some kind of other meal. So, and I realize how much I waste.
Mhm,
And so I'm also trying to also compost and use it as compost.
mhm. Thank you for sharing that. That's really important.
Yeah, I also have something to tip in. In our pantry, sometimes people take things that they really don't need it. They're not gonna eat it. And sometimes people take things and give it to the next door neighbor. But sometimes they are just hoarding food for no reason. And sometimes they cook more than they wanted. And I remember Jesus said, told the apostle, whatever was left over when he fed the 5,000 and then the 4,000, whatever was left over was gathered into the basket. And that's what we always tell our workers, our volunteers. Please don't take what you know you've already have at home. Just leave it for those that are really in need of it. Thank you.
Mhm.
One of the things that I find doing, and especially for you, Sandra, when I buy large quantities of something, I portion it out, and then I freeze it so that like last night, I wanted some chicken wings real bad. Don't know why, but I was craving them. But I portioned it out when I bought it. So I only took out that portion, which was like 6 chicken wings, which actually made 2 meals. And I cooked it in the air fryer. So therefore I didn't have to use any oil or anything. And it came out, it was delicious. I posted it on Instagram, got a lot of comments about it, and I was happy. But I find portioning out and then freezing it, you don't waste it as much. And I do what you do also. I use the stems and the tops of fruits. I make smoothies. I'll make a soup, different things like that. And if you make a big pot of soup, you can also portion that and freeze that too.
Mhm.
And also, there was a time that I didn't like zucchini. I didn't like the way it tasted. I guess I didn't like the way people used to cook it. But then I saw a recipe when I went to the farmer's market. They said you can put a little, once you season it up with the seasoning with a lot of herbs and spices, but no salt. And they said sprinkle a little Parmesan cheese over it and bake it in the oven. And I fell in love with it. So I do it quite often now. But before I didn't even like it. But it's very nice now. And it's healthy.
Thank you. We're going to continue we're going to kind of go, I'm going to ask Alex some questions, and then we'll come back to the large group discussion. It's really helpful for people to share like these everyday tips, right? That's so much of how we learn, is by sharing like these small suggestions and these small everyday actions that we take with each other. One of the things that we've been missing in our society is like forums for people to share how they're eating well together. We don't always talk with one another about how, the things that we are practically doing on a day-to-day level to eat well. So Alex, I'm actually just wondering if you could share a time when you were like an example of a time when you experienced like mindful eating versus not mindful eating, just to kind of help us, give us an example of like some, what does mindful eating look like versus not eating mindfully for you?
Well, that could vary on the day and different variables. I think I want to kind of stress the fact that um, mindful eating, one of the constructs is really not judging yourself. A lot of times we re-traumatize ourselves by guilt, and it's a cycle. Stress eating is often triggered by guilt, and so you get into this cycle. That person eating the half a gallon of ice cream and just crying the whole time. And I mention that because there is a lot of trauma and healing necessary in the Black and Brown community, and the relationship with food is really very well connected to that. So I'll say that's the first thing. So to answer your question, like during the complicated birth of my child, 5 years ago, I found myself eating, to out of impulse, because I was, food. And I often tell people, food is the most powerful legalized drug in the world. I mean, you don't need a prescription. You can go into McDonald's and eat 10 Big Macs. I mean, you'll probably have a heart attack, but it is really pound for pound. It's a drug, because it endorphins what happens when you eat sugar and certain things that are triggered by stress. And so, well, I was 40 pounds overweight at the time. I didn't know whether, and that's actually when I started the mindfulness practice in the Kellogg Fellowship. And, my coach was Chris Block, which kind of started me down the path of, and it's not overnight, right? It's just like, it's really step by step, and really starting to deal with the fact that I was stressed out. There was anxiety. I didn't know how to cope well. And through, a mindfulness practice, I was able to actually develop a better relationship with food. But you have to first deal with your own issues first, in a way, and acknowledge them and not really guilt trip yourself out. And so I feel that it's important to say that mindfulness is really about tomorrow more than it was about yesterday, and really being able to take that track. In terms of mindful eating, it became glaringly aware that the things I was putting into my body made me either tired or have more energy, made me either less depressed or contributed to being more depressed. Obviously, when you hit a sugar high, there's the sugar low, and everyone goes through that. You don't have to be a diabetic to actually have that happen to you. And really kind of asking myself that question: how is this serving me? Whatever was in my hand that I was or about to put in my mouth, really just taking a second and saying, is this serving me nutritiously? If it is a treat, and then I'd ask, not if I deserve a treat, but is it time for a treat? Have I been going to the gym? Have I been doing things that have earned that treat? And these are personal conversations that you have with yourself. Any relationship with food is based on the relationship that you have with yourself. And as a chef, I have the capability of trying different things without prejudice or extreme prejudice, because I want to try different things. So last week, for the first time, I tried chickpea spaghetti. And I mean, I didn't tell my son it was chickpea, but he didn't know the difference. And, I was searching for, my godfather, he's diabetic, and he told me a story last week about he ate a whole bunch of pasta, and, he went almost into a diabetic shock. And, he's telling me the story, and I'm like, wow, that sounds so good, but what should and I just went searching for, they have a chickpea, they have a red lentil, they have all these different kinds of pastas that are not that much different in terms of bite or chew than regular, not so good for you white pasta. And so here, and this was just last week, you know what I mean? Like, just being open to trying new things that could make a drastic difference. Anything white sugar, white flour, all of those things are just proven to be not good. And so finding substitutes and being able to put them in not only my diet, but my son. Actually, like, this is when we're not going to buy white pasta anymore. Like, I found the answer, and if it's good enough for a 5-year-old who's very finicky, and my wife and myself, we have now an alternative that we can just swap out. And I have to be honest with you, you don't get the same drag of eating the carbs in a high gluten white pasta, and you feel so much better the next day. And one of the things that's really important that goes with mindful eating is inflammation. Inflammation is something that's terribly um, prevalent in the Black and Brown community, and it's a gateway to, and I'm not a doctor, but I understand this from a nutritional perspective, but it's a gateway to many other diseases, because once something becomes inflamed over and over again, it becomes susceptible to developing into a disease. So, part of the mindful eating part is making myself feel good. Um, and I would say that's the clear difference.
This question that you were asking yourself, is this serving me? I said such a powerful question to ask ourselves when we were eating. Or even like, what is this serving is another way of asking that question. What is this serving? When you're eating something or drinking something. And then what you were saying about eating without judging. As like critical, being a critical piece of mindfulness and awareness is not being judgmental. We're gonna move towards, and that's going to be like a key part of what we're going to it's a key part of what we're going to be like doing for the homework assignments that we're inviting people. We're going to be inviting people into a 21-day mindful eating process, and 21 days, because that's as much time as it is supposed to take to help to create a new habit, and to like just pay more awareness to how different foods are impacting you. So I once again, I want to open up to the larger group, and like, are there kind of other thoughts based on what Alex has said, or based on what other people have said, either about mindfulness, about specific foods, or about how this connects with people's faith traditions and spiritual pathways that they want to continue sharing before we come to the close of this evening session.
I just want to, I just put in the chat Alex's sentence. I really like that. Any relationship you have with food is based on the relationship you have with yourself. And I think one element we touched on today, but we're going to talk more about in the future sessions is, the pink elephant in the room, right, is these companies that are, perpetuating this unhealthy food system that we have. And, I think, at least for me, from, a faith perspective, a lot of, my faith tradition talks about the importance of working towards social justice. And, what do we need to do to hold these companies accountable to the food system that is being created? So for me, part of mindful eating is about how does the food in front of me, or the food that communities have available or don't have available, sort of motivate us to make a change for the larger food system and what we can be doing to advocate for more accountability within the food system.
You know, food is like a drug, like the chef mentioned. And I think you just have to educate the masses, and I think you have to educate children first, because those are the ones that will change all situations, the youth, because food is a drug. And the attraction of all these fast food restaurants, you can't just tell people, oh, that's bad for you. You have to actually reference the disease model and let them know this is what would happen to you over time when you're 20, when you're 30, when you're 40, when you're 50. I had to learn the hard way. I was 340 pounds at 18 years old, walking across the campus with a cane. And it still didn't change the way I was conducting myself with food. Is only when I got older and I fall in and out of situations. But now I know it's vital for me to change my eating in order for me to transition into senior citizenship. I'll be 59 next month. I'm heading into my 60s. It's important that I change. So I'm becoming mindful of that I need to stay healthy, to take care of myself, you know? So I believe it starts with the children. I think these programs should be introduced to children because it's very hard to change young adults unless they're into athletics or into exercise or what have you. But this is a hard battle to change certain individuals. So I don't know where you will begin in the school system, in little clubhouses or whatever. But this has to be introduced in such a way because the attraction of fast food is there and it's very strong. And it'll pull them away from the concept of mindful eating, eating healthy, you know?
I think that I am in agreement with people who have spoken before, where they say that we need to start with our young people, our young children. Yes, we do need to start with our children, but also I've been having conversations with my friends about what we eat and how we eat it. So I think that it needs to start on all different tracks, uh, one-on-one conversations as well as the group conversations about the kinds of food and the benefits of this food or that food, developing those lists of the good foods and what the not so good foods. Um, that's what I would. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Can,
Is there anyone else who, oh, is it Patricia are you about to share?
Yes,
yes,
I'm happy to see that we have a chef that's involved. In today's society and the way we live today, everybody goes for the fast food. People don't really cook at home anymore. They choose to, bring in the food from outside. And I think if we make it more fun and show people that they have alternatives, I think that's a good place to start, and definitely starting with the young people and engaging them, because I think, they can influence others. But the fact that, we can begin to show people creative ways of really fixing food and making it more fun, like Flora indicated before, that she didn't like a certain food, but she learned to prepare it a little different. And you can begin to make it real fun and interactive. And I think really doing the cooking classes, I think that's a great place to begin, and showing that we have alternative ways of preparing the food. We have gotten into everything is fast food, everything is fast moving these days. And so how do we begin to break out of that cycle?
can I would like to say, um, can I say something? I'm Jane. I came in late. I'm sorry about that. But I'd just like to say that it is very, very important that we try to get across to the children, no matter how, at a very young age. But if the parents of themselves don't really do it and enjoy it, then the kids can't absorb it, because I have a very good eating habit, and that was from my childhood. It's nothing I picked up when I grew up. I grew up,
My mother continually, every single thing you were going to eat, she would ask, what was going to do for your body? What is that going to do to you? That's no good. And I grew up with that. And until this day, if I even eat junk, I know I'm eating junk. The minute I pick it up, I say, no, this is no good, And the next day, I take a wash out or I take some detox tea or something because I'm so aware of it. So I think if the parents try, another thing I can't understand is the amount of how expensive fast food is. Fast food is crazy. I don't know how they even afford to buy fast food for a whole family to satisfy them. When you can really fix things that are so nice and pleasant that cost a fraction of what you buy one fast food meal for 3 or 4 people. So I think the parents of themselves have to really get into that and realize that they can save themselves a lot of money and make the family a lot healthier by spending a little time. Another thing that is very good, prepare. You buy chicken tonight, don't throw it in the freezer or be anything. When you have some time, you buy the chicken, you buy whatever it is, fix them up, cut up the vegetable, clean up the meat, season them up, and then you package them and freeze them. So if you're going out this morning, you plan to cook something and you take it out the freezer and leave it out. By the time you come back, it's just ready to put into the oven or ready to put into the pot. But if you got to start peeling and cutting and cleaning, you can't be bothered. And that's why you grab the fast food out there to come in with. So if when you're on a Saturday or Sunday, whatever day you have the time to shop and you make a big shopping, clean up everything, no matter what it looks, clean them up, season them up, package them up in what portion, then you freeze them.
Miss Jane, I really appreciate what you said because you got the words from my mouth. I wanted to say that charity begins at home. It starts with the parents because children spend more time with the parent than anywhere else.
Right.
By the grace of God, God has blessed us with 8 kids, 4 boys and 4 girls. And I realized that each child is different, but one thing is basic. Whatever you taught them when they were little, they keep it up.
Amen.
So, Ms. Jen, I really appreciate it. And my grandma was 103 years old. The way she ate really, blew my mind. Cleaning the chicken, just like we said, seasoning it and putting it in the freezer is great option, great idea. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Toya. I'm listed as in progress consulting on the screen, but another reason why having good eating habits at home is going to be really good for the younger generation is I'm not vegan or vegetarian. I do a mostly whole food, plant-based diet, but my oldest is off at college now. And my oldest said to me that she felt like I brainwashed her because she wants vegetables and she doesn't want to eat all the fast food that's at her college dormitory. And I feel like that's a direct reflection of the way we eat at home, not forcing them to eat healthy, but that's just our lifestyle. Same with my friends. My friends see me posting about healthy recipes and juicing and doing things like that. And they in turn are more interested because I'm not shoving it down their throat. I'm just showing them this is the way that I eat. I buy fresh fruits and vegetables and frozen vegetables and fruit, and this is how I prepare it. And I'm showing the behavior that I want others to at least pay attention to. And if they choose to follow it, then that's the added bonus.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's all the examples you guys are giving are like we are such social creatures, right? Like we talked about that in terms of how we eat together, but obviously it's also like how we talk about it, how we share, how we post on social media for those people for whom that's a part of their life. Like it's all of it. We can reinforce certain trends in society or not. And I hear all of you speaking to that in different ways. So we are coming towards the end of this particular class. We're going to be doing as I said, we're going to be going into we're going to invite you to have a 21 days of purposely having one mindful meal a day. We're also going to invite you to keep a food journal of what you're eating and how does it make you feel. This is a non-judgmental process. And we want to emphasize that again and again and again and again. It's like part of the awareness that we're all working to build, and I include myself in this. I will also be doing this, is to learn what do our bodies really like, and what works and what doesn't work. And we don't always know. And sometimes it changes for us over time. So for those of you who haven't done so before, hopefully that will be helpful. Or if you have done it, doing it again might be helpful. And please keep sharing the resources that you guys are coming across. There's some really good ones that have been posted. Alex and Bob and Kelly, are there other things you guys want to close out with?
I will just say that, this could be a very, like this, we could go on and on and on. I mean, we can unpack this for hours. I will just kind of review the tenets of mindful eating and mindfulness, that we really want to just slow down and just try to reflect and think. And that could be even before how something's making you feel. How does it taste? And just really kind of experience to using all your senses, with appreciation. I mean, with that sense of appreciation of where that food came from, who planted those seeds, who cultivated it, who harvested it, who transported it, who stored it for us, and who cared for it. The people that really cared that these vegetables, these these food components is part of our sustaining our life force. And just to give that some thought, and that's really part of the larger food system that we can, kind of flush out during the program. The second piece of it is, part of the homework was watching the breakfast shakes, and we have more of a full portfolio of mindful eating recipe demos for our next episode of Mindful Eating Beloved Community for our next class. But, in terms of the breakfast shake piece of it, just really how simple it is to have nutrition in the morning, how imperative it is, how affordable it is, how user-friendly it is. Someone that is, one of the youth in the family can actually put things in a blender and make a breakfast shake. So really, as we go down this path of mindful eating, and I use all my culinary ability to show and tell, I really want to emphasize that that's really important, that we understand everyone's on a budget. Everything that we're doing in terms of recipes is only for a few dollars, and feeds a few people. And we're very conscientious that, the stigma of eating healthy is expensive. Yes, depending on where you go and how you shop. And so we'll get into those things as well. And that's let's all try to think about how we can start our version of a practice, starting if we don't already have, starting tomorrow. So that's my closing comment, sir.
Oh, by the way, Alex, I enjoyed your banana power milkshake. I tried it myself. It was very nice.
Thank you.
I'll try your apple one starting tomorrow.
The apple ones, if you can sneak that spinach in and give it to a child, you have a home run. Nobody has to know that there's spinach in there.
I made that one today. Yeah, the spinach. It was delicious.
Yeah, it was good.
Oh, okay. We gotta give it.
Alex, how come you didn't try the first one? The young lady tried it, but you didn't try the first one.
Oh, because I'm allergic to bananas.
Okay, I knew something was going on.
Yeah. I didn't want to ruin the whole show by
Okay.
But I can eat cooked bananas. So, there's another thing again down the road, but there's certain enzymes and certain things that have to be deactivated, kind of like lactose in milk. And we need to, some things we can eat cooked that we can't eat raw. And that's all within the fruit vegetable realm. People are allergic to certain things in the raw fruits and vegetables. So that's something that we have to, I won't die, but my tongue will start itching, and you could tell that you have a slight allergic reaction to it. And so I can eat cooked bananas, but I can't eat raw.
Are you going to give us the recipe for the chickpeas, pasta and lentils and other stuff?
I have recipes for the recipes in the mindful eating. I just did this chickpea thing just over the weekend. So I was just experimenting. I could come up with a recipe, but I will tell you that, with anything chickpea, red lentil pasta, you want to be careful that you don't shock it in cold water. You just, what you do is you just put it on a pan and you let it cool and you just toss it with a little, olive oil. And then that way it won't break apart. When you shock things in cold water, it absorbs the cold water. And that's why the chickpeas and red lentil pastas won't work as well as the white, the white whole pastas.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Beautiful. I think we come to the end of our time. If there's anyone, please don't hesitate to contact us with any questions. You'll be getting an email with the homework tomorrow. And there'll be some new recipes will also be coming. And then next week, we're going to be going deeper into mindful eating. We're going to have more small group conversations so people will get a chance to share in small groups. And we are going to be going deeper into food. And Alex will be cooking with us. So that's exciting.
Yay.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Bye.
Great week.
Bye, everyone. God's
care.
blessing.
Bye.
Good night.
Hey, good night, all.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.
Good night. Take care.